Aaron Whitlow.
Brandon Spivey. Welcome to the Markout Movie Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. And on today's episode, Aaron has picked The Temptations.
Yeah, it's because Brandon, I was able to introduce him to the Five Heartbeats film, and I wanted him to see the Temptations film. And so, they came out obviously years after the Five Heartbeats came out, like in 91, 92, 90, like early
Yeah,
90s.
early. Yeah.
This is late 90s, 98. That came out. Now, a little backstory. Otis Williams, who is of the Temptations, was like a consultant on the Five Heartbeats, and he was so impressed with Leon's performance as in the Five Heartbeats. I'm surprised he wasn't impressed with Eddie King's performance. That was the performance in Five Heartbeats. I agree with you now, Brandon. I totally now say Eddie King killed that movie. Um, but anyway, uh, Otis was so impressed with Leon that he wanted Leon to audition for him in this movie. But Leon decided to go a different way and instead chose to do David Ruffin, who we know David Ruffin. Once again, in this movie, Leon killed that. I kind of feel like uh, that Eddie King borrowed heavily, because David Ruffin's a real life person. I think Eddie King borrowed heavily from Leon, from David Ruffin. What's your thought?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. It was like basically watching the same character, except one character has a happy ending and the other one doesn't. But yeah, it was like watching pretty much the same kind of character there. Both were kind of big ego, drug issues, all about themselves. Gotta get humbled a little bit, but I don't really think David got humbled, really.
Mm-mm.
But Leon was great. Leon was my favorite part of the movie, which I told you. You messaged me. I just finished part one, and he was the only thing keeping me in it. And I know that's going to be sacrilegious to a lot of people that love the Temptations. I don't really know anything about the Temptations. As I said, I heard a few songs, but I didn't really listen to them. So this was like a really new experience for me. And
Yeah.
I'm going to say something that's kind of controversial, I'm sure. I don't care for Otis in this movie. Like, I just don't. I didn't understand why he was such a big deal. As far as
Uh,
the representation of him, he's like the leader that holds it together, but he just doesn't. I just didn't feel it.
well, I would say this as far as with Otis Williams. So I read the book, The Temptations, that the movie was based on,
Yeah.
the biographical book, autobiographical book rather, that Otis Williams wrote. I own it. I don't know where it's at this day in time. I know I have it somewhere. I finished it, um, and it was interesting. But obviously, their narration and the point of view is Otis Williams' point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So, in your own story, you're gonna make yourself the hero essentially of your own story, uh, and not so much put yourself in a villainous light. Even with and we're gonna go ahead and get into it. Even with like with him and Josephine, his wife, that scene where he's coming back from the first road trip, and he's talking to Florence Henderson, like holding her hand and things like that, just kind of talking to her. Which
Mm-hmm.
it could have been an innocent thing. It could have been literally him just making a new friendship. But I guess the implication is he slept with her. They had an affair on the road. But in the movie, it didn't come across that way. It came across to me. It made Josephine seem like she was uh, out of line. Like she was like insecure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
gather that? Did you see that or catch that?
Yeah, yeah, I did. I did. Yeah. But I didn't know that like you said in the book, it came off like they had an affair.
No, no. In the movie, I think in real life they had an affair,
Okay.
but in the movie, it came off like they were just friends, and then Josephine kind of blew it out of proportion. That's how I took it. But also, I have horrible time reading people's body language and social cues, so I might be totally wrong. But that's what came off to me. Did it come off to you like they did something and you know?
Okay, Josephine's the girl from the beginning, right? He's there singing with,
Yeah,
following.
Josephine was so first. All right, let's start off from the beginning. So Josephine is literally just Josephine Henderson, I think is her name. She's from the Supremes, so Diana Ross is Supreme. So she's
Oh, okay, okay.
with Diana Ross. In the movie, when they got off the bus, Otis was kind of talking to a lady, and and right before he went to try to find Josephine, and she kind of like didn't want to be kissed by him and stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
she like knew that something has happened. Uh, but in the movie, it didn't come off that way. It came off as Josephine was just insecure. Um, but all right, so start off. It's the movie starts with Otis and his buddy Elton Eldridge, which was a real like everybody's real life people in this movie, I guess. But Eldridge, they went to see this band play, and they said pretty much that day he was like, "I'm gonna be a musician. I'm gonna be a
yeah,
singer." And so him and Eldridge became Otis Williams and the Siberians, um, and eventually got changed their name to Otis Williams in the distance. One of the guys in the movie that played Richard Street A. August Richards. Uh, I know him from I
Angel.
believe he was an Angel. Yeah. So and later on, I believe he was in Marvel's Agents of Shield. I think he did like a stint on that show. Um, and then of course DB Woodson is Melvin. I like Melvin. That's one of my favorite characters. He just seemed like a genuine character, genuine person. Blue, the one they
Yeah,
call Blue. He's on Lucifer as well. Uh,
he's also in
have you
24. He's President Palmer's brother.
oh, really? Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
he is, isn't he?
yeah. That's how I know him.
I also
I
he's
mean,
in Romeo Must Die.
what's that?
He was in Romeo Must Die.
Was he?
The, yeah,
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah. He was. Yeah, he was. You're right. He played the brother of Aaliyah.
he's always somebody's brother.
Yeah, I always get confused because Delroy Lindo's in that movie. Isaiah Washington, of course, Jet Li, Aaliyah,
You know what I just
Anthony
noticed?
Anderson.
That is true. He literally plays somebody's brother in everything. Even in Lucifer, he's Lucifer's brother. He's literally he knows he knows how to play the brother slash best friend slash confidant role, and he did, and that's the role that he played. He played like essentially Otis's brother. He was the Pippin to Jordan. He's the
Are we really going
I
there?
wouldn't call Otis. I wouldn't call Otis Jordan. I wouldn't call Otis Jordan.
I wouldn't
Leon
either.
Leon was Jordan, aka David Ruffin. David Ruffin was literally the thing missing in the group that made the Temptations the Temptation. It's just that addiction and never having things, but getting things, um, impacted him for the negative.
Yeah,
Um, but Leon, you said that his performance blew you out the water.
yeah. I mean, it kept me interested. So yeah, I would say it blew me out of the water. I,
Leon's a different actor than everybody else, as far as you know what I'm saying. Like he's a guy that is very Topco. He's a guy that's very uh, very like he's that guy. I can't think of the word. He's the guy that brings his brings he brings it whenever he acts.
Yeah.
Um, Otis Williams, aka Charles Malik Whitfield. Uh, I'm not a huge fan of this guy's. I thought he did okay as Otis. He did good with the role that he was given, but like you said, you didn't really get the hype of who Otis was.
No.
So
And as someone that doesn't know who he is, I just wasn't interested in him. Right or wrong, I just wasn't. I didn't understand why he was so, important to the group. Other
yeah,
than he was kind of coming up with it, when it started. But I with Melvin was like saying when the first group broke up, because they didn't get paid.
yeah.
uh,
Oh, shout out to Vanessa Bell Calloway, by the way.
yeah,
Uh,
they
she
brought
she's
in
tremendous.
they brought in Paul, and I forget the other guy's name, but Melvin
Uh,
told
Paul,
him that
Paul and Eddie Kendrick.
Eddie, yeah,
Uh,
okay,
Paul and
but
Eddie Corn. Yeah.
Melvin was like, they want to be in our group, and they get there and said, so you want to join our group? So it's like the narrative of his story is that he was the main attraction, but he didn't come off like the main attraction to me watching this.
I don't think I never got it that he's the main attraction. He came off as essentially the glue that kind of held the group together. Even to this day, is still the Temptations is still around. He's the only surviving original member of the Temptations. Everyone else has passed away. Eddie Kendricks passed away. Melvin Franklin passed away. Paul Williams has passed away. Even Richard Street, he's passed away. And Eldridge, I think he's gone. And what's the other guy? Dennis Edwards, the one that came in after David Ruffin.
Yeah.
He's gone too. So yeah, I think you know uh, it. But he's the only thing that survives. Now they still touring things, but obviously Melvin Otis is pushing. You gotta be pushing almost 90 years old, man. Um,
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, this started like in 1958. He had to at least be 17 years old by then. Just the way it was laid out. Yeah, I would say that's what 40, 60 something years. Yeah, he's pushing around 90.
yeah.
If he was around 17 when in 1958, he's pushing close to 90.
My favorite character in the movie is actually Paul Williams, the
Oh yeah,
one that was with the primes and the primates before the primates became the Supremes. He was the dancer of the bunch. He was very creative. He's very talented. But he had his demons with alcoholism, and he also suffered. Although the movie never depicts it, he also suffered from sickle cell, sickle cell. So he had more factors that caused his downfall. Some people feel like he was actually murdered and not suicide, but yeah, uh, but he was a character that I was really pleased with uh, in this movie. It's funny, my uncle who lives in Detroit um, knew a lot of these characters, knew a lot of these people in some way, shape, and form. He actually used to go to Motown, and he's the one who told me years ago Motown was right next to a funeral home. And in the movie, sure enough, it's right next to a funeral home. And so I think they shot it at the Real Hitchfield, USA, which is still in existence today. You can tour it. But I think that this movie, between this and the Five Heartbeats, this movie's more polished as far as like the way it looks, the acting, and things like that. But I agree with you in the sense that I think the Five Heartbeats has more heart. No,
yeah.
no pun intended, but it does.
I just As I told you, this is just my opinion. I just felt the Five Heartbeats flowed better. It was a better flow than this. I didn't really feel like we really got to know too many of the Temptations. Like really, it felt scattered to me in the direction it was going. But I really did like Paul. Like you said, I thought he was good. I really did. I didn't like how they did. I didn't like how they did really anybody. This group just it's like they just quit on each other if something
Mhm.
slightly goes wrong. Now, obviously, with Eddie David, I want to call him Eddie. I understand why he was fired. Uh, he had a drug problem, but they should have tried to
Well,
help him.
David, not Eddie. David
Yeah,
was fine. Eddie quit.
yeah, I meant David. I said
Okay.
Eddie at first because they're basically the same character uh, from the
Well,
Five
yeah, and
Heartbeats.
this movie has kind of made it them the same, essentially the same character, except for what you saying Eddie. Oh, Eddie and David. I get you. I'm thinking Eddie and David. I'm thinking Temptation. You're thinking Eddie King and
Yeah,
David Ruff. I got you. I'm sorry.
yeah. But I thought they should have helped him out a little bit more, like helped him get in rehab. If if they I don't know if they had those kind of resources back in the day, like in the '60s. I know they had them in the '70s, but I'm not sure about the '60s. But I just felt they
Now,
should have tried to help him a little bit more.
a little backstory on David Ruffin. David Ruffin did he did he was from Mississippi. He started off as a gospel singer. He left home at a very young age because his father was abusive, like he was kind of talking about. He left home at a very young age. Ended up moving to Memphis, Tennessee to continue doing gospel. But there he became uh, friends with Elvis Presley for one, Johnny Cash for another, and other people that was kind of in the Memphis scene at the time. Uh, he eventually moved to Detroit with his mentor, a gospel singer. And while he was there, his brother Jimmy, who just got out of the military, came there, and they both kind of didn't get on at Motown. They cut a couple of albums, but didn't really get on. But they stayed at Motown being enhancement artists, like doing background vocals, um, doing changing lights, doing odd jobs for Motown, just to try to get a shot. And he eventually in real life was already kind of there doing background vocals for the Temps when he got the role as a Temp. When
Yeah,
Al left, but in this movie, it made it seem like they just kind of he came up and sung, and oh, he fits like a glove. This is it.
yeah,
Um, but I did like learning. I just kind of did a little research. I like learning that David Ruffin had this experience and met these people like Elvis and was, and kind of made him, who not. I'm not going to say that they made him, but I would say more or less they must have all influenced one another. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I believe that back then with music, and there was probably like some type of rivalry and stuff going on with different artists. But I would say for the most part, I would say that they probably influence one another and try to, you know, uh, kind of make each other up each other's game. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. Yeah, I would say if there was a rivalry, I'd say it was a friendly one, especially back then, because it's different. It was different. It was a different time back then. They didn't hate on each other just to be hating on each other. They would have a legit reason if they did. Anything I've seen with Elvis and Johnny Cash though, they were really good friends. Very supportive of each other. So I would say it would have been the same for what David. I keep wanting to call him Eddie. I'm sorry.
David is real. Eddie was not. But
I
yeah,
know. I know. I
Eddie,
know.
Eddie was David. Eddie was David. Eddie was a caricature of David Ruffin and probably two or three other people. But yeah, David. was real life. He's a real dude that really existed. Like Temptations for me is one of my favorite musical groups of all time. Uh, I remember when I worked at the movie theater back in '99. With my first check, one of the first things I bought, I walked over to the mall during my break, and I bought um, the greatest hit, uh, the Temptations greatest hit, like a 2 disc
Mm-hmm.
CD, and it had like not only the songs that we all know, but it had songs that was like like deep cut type of songs on it. And so I used to play the CD those CDs over and over again. Uh, but yeah, I'm a fan of the Temps. Um, that's why this movie I like it. I like it more. I can say I like it more than the Five Heartbeats because I think that they both have a place.
Yeah.
Uh, and like you say, it might not be your cup of tea, but it doesn't take away and make it a bad movie.
No,
Uh,
no.
and plus, the Five Heartbeats was an actual full length feature film that was in the movie theaters or whatever. With this is a mini series
Yeah.
that spread over I don't know maybe 2 to 3 days. Um, but
Yeah, you said this too when Elvis came out. It moved really fast for you, and you didn't know some of the things that were going on when they were going on. It
I
was
wasn't super
fast.
familiar with a lot of his story too. So
Yeah, so I think I had the same experience with the Temptations because I wasn't familiar with what was really going on. It was going fast for me, so I was like,
mhm.
okay. So I think it's we had similar experiences in
Yeah,
in that regard.
yeah. I will say this. I think that the Temptations. I think that what they what they introduced to the game. You know, now they were at one point probably one of the biggest musical groups as far as like uh, they wanted to be the biggest group,
Yeah,
the biggest group, not just the biggest black group. Which I can understand that. But I wouldn't say that they made it to that, and I'm going to just be honest. I wouldn't say that they made it to being the biggest group because, in my opinion, this is only in my opinion, I would say the biggest group of all time would probably be the Beatles. Period.
I agree.
Musically, would probably be the Beatles because they and I not taking anything away from the Temptations or the Four Tops or the Commodores or any other group that or even white groups like the Rolling Stones. Not taking anything away from them. It's just that the Beatles is its own thing. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like kind of like how Elvis is his own thing. Michael
Yeah,
Jackson is his own thing. You know, uh, they like you have artists, but then you have Elvis. You have artists, but then you have Michael Jackson, Prince. You have artists, but then you have these icons.
yeah.
For, to me, the Temptations is a fantastic group, but they are no Beatles. They're not the Beatles. They're not the Beatles. You know what I'm saying? And
I
and, I'm,
I hear
and I
you.
love the Temptations, but it's a something that I'm coming to the realization just talking to you now, just thinking about this, is that they were huge, but I don't think that they ever got where they wanted to be.
Well, I would say that would be because they got in their own way. You know,
Mm.
they it just seemed like it was disruption no matter what. Like they just couldn't be on the same page. You know,
Mm.
they put themselves before the group. A lot of them did anyway. Uh, maybe Otis didn't. Maybe he was all about the group and what was best for the group, and I think that's what they were trying to say when he would get rid of people. Is he's putting the group first. If you got problems, you got to go. You know, I'm not gonna let anybody come in and destroy the group. I feel
Yeah.
like that's what the point was to all that, but it to me, it kind of came off
You
selfish though, because
you know what? And with that being said, it kind of makes sense too, like kind of what you're saying as far as like, because even one part when Shelly Berger, the manager of the Temptations, he would say stuff, and I hated it. He'd say like, Otis wasn't expecting you, or Otis,
yeah,
did you do this with Otis, or Otis, what do you think? You know, kind of like Otis is the default leader of the group. Not so much he's the lead singer, but he's the leader
yeah,
of the group. And you know, I don't know, man. So like, I want to talk about that though. So we started off with the distance. Oh, the Otis Williams and the Siberian. Obviously, he wasn't. He wanted to be the lead singer, but it didn't pan out. But with that, they didn't get paid. Richard Street, Al, and the other guy, Bones, I guess they called him.
yeah.
Uh, they left. They quit. They said, "We're out. We're done."
Hmm.
Uh, so Blue remained. Melvin remained, and Otis remained. But then they linked up with the Primes, and then Al came back. But then Al essentially would quit. They said he would quit every week or whatever. Al eventually tried to, fight Paul and smash the bottle over his head or whatever. According to that story, the movie, Paul is out. That makes sense. He's not good for the group. He's taking you down. Kick him out.
Yeah,
Next one to go was David Ruffin. David, he got into the drug problem, start missing shows, showing up late, trying to become David Ruffin in the Temptations, trying to become even
yeah,
though he was he was essentially the lead singer, but like that was what they did. Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Diana Ross and the Supremes, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. So they did that. They had the one people that uh, I would say not. It was always Jackson Five. It wasn't Michael Jackson in Jackson Five, but clearly Michael Jackson became Michael Jackson. Um, but yeah, but I think with David Ruffin, I think with David, uh, I think they could have maybe gave him another chance, maybe, but ultimately you can't. They say one monkey can't stop the show. Is is
yeah,
a is is a is a is a term. You can't just allow this one person to stop it. With Paul and his addiction, now in real life, I think they did try to help him stick with him, have him do other things, but eventually he wasn't able to continue. And
yeah,
so they had to replace him. Uh, and then they didn't really explain why uh, uh, Dennis Edwards left, or really why Eddie left. Really, it seemed like Eddie was just mad and Eddie left. But uh, I would say at that point, the Temptations stopped being the Temptations. At
yeah,
that point,
yeah. I would agree. I just when watching the movie, it just felt like they were just so disruptive. They just could not be on the same page, no matter what, and that's unfortunate too. I mean, because if you get on the same page, they probably could have became the biggest group. I mean, honestly, but they just couldn't be on the same page, and egos played a part. I believe. I know they played a part with David. I mean, he was in the wrong and trying to make himself bigger than the group. Uh, so I hate that they fired him, but I also understood. The one that really bothered me was Paul, though, because he wanted to be part of the group so bad. I mean, he wanted to come back, and
but,
I just felt Otis kind of did him wrong.
yeah, I, I looked at it differently this time around. Dylan, I work at a job that works in addiction, and so I looked at it a little differently this time around as far as with Paul. Uh, Paul wanted to come back, but he couldn't kick the addiction. Uh, when the addiction, it's like it's not something that you can say, just stop
Yeah.
it, snap out of it, or whatever. It's an addiction. It's now something where uh, you will do what you can to get that thing, or to continue doing that thing, and your body desires and craves that thing. And so he couldn't really shake it, but I felt bad because this man's life ultimately ended early. The woman, by the way, that played his wife, Maxine, is Diana Ross's daughter, a real life daughter. Um, so big ups for them to cast her. I believe it might be Barry Gordy's daughter as well, because Diana Ross and Barry Gordy ended up together. If you didn't know that story, um,
I did
but
not.
yeah, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happens. There's a book out there that talks about like the underbelly of Motown. Man, it was very explosive. Um, some of the stuff. I'm surprised if Barry Gordy is still alive. I'm surprised he hadn't been canceled. Yeah, but anyway, very Weinstein type stuff. But anyway,
Wow.
yeah, I mean it is what it is, man. It's they don't talk about it, but it is, man. Um, but anyway, uh, with Paul, I felt I felt really bad with his death because his death uh was very avoidable. I felt, but I don't know, man. Ultimately, the very end of the movie, when the mother of Mama Rose is talking to Otis at the table, says, "You are the glue that held this group together. I thank you. I thank you for all that you did and contributed." I feel like it was kind of a pat on the back of Otis.
Yeah.
I feel like this what this movie ultimately is a pat on the back of Otis. Whereas with the Five Heartbeats, it wasn't a pat on the back of Duck or a pat on the back of Eddie King, JT, Dresser, those guys. It was just an overall. These guys was a group, a moment in time that happened that you know it gives you the feel good that movie did.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
So I'm sure you know a little bit about the history here. It didn't really explain it. Didn't show it either. When Melvin goes into the kitchen, what does he? Does he like have a heart attack or
yeah. I think that he had a stroke.
stroke? Okay.
So he is diabetic as well. So he ended up having a stroke or a heart attack, something like that. Ended up dying. Uh, um, so and that's sweet to bring actual Smokey Robinson in to really like sing that song. And he died. The real life Melvin Melvin Franklin died right right before this movie uh, was aired. And so that was kind of a tribute to the real life guy that I'm really gonna miss you. It was for the real Melvin, who actually looked more like Otis. Like everybody in the movie, the casting, nobody really looked like the real people at all. Um, maybe closest would have been Leon. Everybody else is like look like you'll see in a picture and you'll say, "Oh, that's got to be Melvin." No, you're looking at Otis. No, that's got to be Paul. No, you're looking at Melvin. Eddie's the only one that kind of maybe looks like Eddie.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I did like
Eddie
what
did.
Leon. I did like what one line Leon said though about Otis. He said, "No one paid to see you." I kind of started laughing. I was like,
Everybody can see you, Otis. So let me tell you something about that line. So uh, uh, when they were doing that, Leon said that he ad libbed that line,
I figured he
and,
did.
and then the director said, "Hey, Leon, Otis, well, the actor that plays Otis, don't like it when you say that because it's kind of you kind of hurt his feelings." And then Leon said, "Do you want real feelings in this movie?" Then I'm going to say that line. And so when they called action again, he dug into it and said, "Ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis." And then they're like, and he says, I know you want to leave me. That was all ad lib, and oh man, it was great. It was the best moment in the movie. I agree.
Yeah, I couldn't help but laugh at it because I felt, and maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but I felt that was kind of what the real Otis wanted. He wanted, some, what's the word?
Joe
Validation,
Ryan.
maybe,
Oh yeah.
for what he did for this group. And I just hearing Leon say that, it just made me laugh a little bit. It was a good moment, but I kind of felt bad for Otis too because he wanted it so bad in this moment. He wanted his group, he wanted to be big. And to hear someone say that, it's got to tear your heart all to pieces. I mean, really.
What were your thoughts on Otis's losing? Like I thought something about him losing his mother. I lost my mom, and so I kind of felt that I lost my mother to cancer as well, and so I kind of felt that a little bit more this time around.
Yeah.
Uh, but what were your thoughts on Otis losing his son?
Oh, whew. Sad because you know, he wasn't with him when it happened, and it was a tragic accident. He didn't get the phone call himself. Melvin told him. Oh man, I would have if I've been in that situation, man. I think I would have really broke down. My world would have came crashing. Me personally, but I just thought it was really sad and tragic. Anytime that I've experienced anyone that's lost a child, it's like their whole world comes crashing down. It's like they really don't have much to live for after that, and it's just sad. I know somebody that I was really close to. She lost her son when he turned 21, or 5 days before he turned 21, and she's never been the same since. And it destroys you. And he was one of my closest friends growing up, so it just I it just destroys you
Hmm.
mentally, physically, emotionally. It's just you don't get over it.
Yeah,
And I've personally seen this, so yeah, I would have felt the same thing, if that had been me.
yeah,
So,
I understand. Well, the movie ends with obviously with Melvin dying. So Eddie's gone. Eddie died of cancer. Uh, uh, but David Ruffin is dead. Everyone died essentially. But then it doesn't end on that. It ends with them going into the theater and the Temptations to perform in that same theater, just by themselves, which was a beautiful moment. Just kind of remember who they were.
yeah,
Uh, but you ready to give your marks for this?
yeah, yeah. You want me to go
All right.
first?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, I'm gonna give it 3.5 out of 5 on the markout meter.
All right. Uh, I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it 3.5 as well.
Really?
Uh, yeah, it because it didn't give me the same feels as the Five Heartbeats did. I love this movie, but uh, it's not the same. It's a better put together film. Also, hey, I didn't ask you this. Uh, what's your thoughts on kid
Oh yeah,
Cameron?
kid, Christopher Reed. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love seeing him. I wish he would have looked more like Kid, but I love seeing him. He brought a smile to my face. I I wish they would have cast play to have some. I know it wasn't needed, but it would have been just nice as a kid and play fan. But seeing him was great. It was just because honestly, I hadn't seen him do much outside of the House Party films or was it Class Act? Class Act.
yeah,
I really hadn't seen much from him outside of those films. So, and it was just nice to see him. And this was a better experience than I saw him in the House Party remake. So I'll take that.
yeah. But yeah, it was good to see him. I thought about that. Like, he said, I'm going to juke myself out of a job if I don't come back before, his last teardrop drop or whatever.
Yeah.
I just love seeing them. Like, they're just, for those that grew up watching Kid and Play, whether it's House Party, whether it's Class Act, whatever it is, you just, when you see Kid, and, but when you see Kid and Play, but when you see Kid, you get excited. I don't know about you, but I get excited.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like seeing
I'm
an old fan.
I'm more of a Kid fan than a Play,
Yeah.
which sounds weird to say. Uh, and maybe it was back in the day. Maybe it was the hair. I don't know, but I just gravitated more towards his characters that he played than I did what Play was playing.
Yeah.
I'm having a terrible time with these words, playing
Oh,
with these words.
playing. Ha! Doo-doo-doo. All right. Well, this was our review of not Kid and Play, Temptation. Yeah, I wish it was. No, but I'm glad you got to see it at least. Uh, now you can say that you've seen it, whether you revisit any of them or not ever again. You've seen them, and it's your picnic time around. Brandon, what we got?
I'm going with it. It's on Tubi. Lone Star. It was one of the earlier
The
Matthew McConaughey films that really made me a fan of Matthew McConaughey, to be honest. It's got
okay,
Chris Christopherson in it, Chris Cooper, Elizabeth Pena. Can't think of anybody else. But it's like a murder mystery, and it was one of my favorite murder mysteries watching in 1996, I believe. I think it was actually nominated for an Oscar, if I'm not mistaken. But I may be mistaken on that. But yeah, it's a good mystery
okay.
out in Texas.
Well, deep in the heart of Texas. Well, all right. What do we want the people to do?
Well, if you like this episode and you want to see more, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and share and comment because Aaron loves the comments.
I love the comments, man. We try to talk to you every time we see them. I hope you enjoy the Temptations review. If you've never seen the movie, you can watch the movie on Freebie, Pluto TV, Roku channel, Tubi, Crackle, everything that's free. It's on there. Not to say that it's bad. It's just that's how they roll. Like matter of fact, I told Brandon yesterday, Little Giants is uh,
YouTube.
uh, on YouTube. Why not check it out for free? Little Giants was amazing. I don't know if it still holds up, but it was when I was a kid. Um,
Yeah, Rick Moranis, Ed O'Neill. Devin Sawa's in that movie, isn't he?
you saw us in that movie. Yep.
Yeah.
You know what movie I keep confusing it with every now and then? I ain't gonna lie to you. It's Ladybug, and it's not the same thing.
Now, that's soccer, right?
It's soccer
With
and
Rodney
kid
Dangerfield.
and the kid that end up taking his own life, or whatever that guy's name is.
Oh, the guy from Sidekicks
Yeah, that guy from Sidekick.
and
Also
Sequence.
from Wolverine Story 2. But
And Stephen King's It. The
and
miniseries.
Stephen It.
Yeah.
Yes.
I cannot think of his name, though.
I really did. I wanted him to keep acting. He reminded me of Leonardo, sort of, DiCaprio. But anyway,
Aura about him, yeah.
but I don't know. He didn't stick it out, man. Unfortunately, I hate to hear that. But anyway, we thank you all for sticking it out with us, watching the podcast today. Hope you have a great weekend. Be safe. I don't know when the Super Bowl is. Have fun with that. This Sunday?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea. I don't care. All right. Well,
Why bring it up? Why bring it up?
Yeah, I won't. That's probably when I want wings this Sunday. It's just for the wings. I don't even have cable. I don't know how. Is it gonna be on CBS? I don't know who has it.
I think so. Yeah. I'm not watching, but
I know you're not because your Bengals isn't playing.
they didn't even make the playoffs, so
Oh, he's like, if my Bengals don't make it, I ain't watching.
I probably would have watched if the Lions would have made it, but because they never won anything. But
I wanted Detroit to win.
I don't care about the Chiefs or the 49ers.
Yep. Well, we appreciate you tuning in. Let us know who you think's going to win the Super Bowl. We don't care either way.
Chiefs.
I don't know who that is. Have fun. Is that the one with that Mahomes kid?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they'll win. All right. This will be a two-peat.
Yeah, be 2 in a row.
All right, there you go. I'm waiting for the basketball season. All right. Have a good one. Be safe. God bless you. And I know you want to leave me, but I refuse to let you go.